What's going on, guys? Going to review the Kershaw Skyline. I'm a little late to the party, but I did have a friend send this to me. Shout out to Minnesota Knife Guy for letting me borrow this one. I'm not new to the Skyline design. In fact, I've had some. I had a few when they first come out and then sold them, traded them, or whatever. I can't really remember. But anyways, it took me about a week to get reacquainted with this knife to let you guys know exactly what I think about it. Okay, so this is going to be a very confusing review. And if you love your Kershaw Skyline, turn the video off right now. Okay, because once I show you a few of these things, you might not be able to unsee them. Okay, so there's your disclaimer. That being said, I really do like this knife a lot. I'm not in love with this knife, but you have to keep in mind the price point of these Kershaw Skylines. And I know I'm showing you this Jade Blade HQ exclusive one. It's in the Sandvik steel, the 14C28N steel. I don't know a whole lot about the Sandvik steels, so anyways, the week I used this knife, it held a great edge. If you're curious, they're all sold out on Blade HQ. They come in these jade scales. What's nice about the Skylines is they come in so many different flavors and combinations. So you will be able to get them in carbon fiber. You can get them in Damascus, I think blue. I think they did a tan run. Obviously the jade. I know I've seen some orange. I feel like I've seen orange scales with a black DLC blade. So there's a lot of different options. I believe there's one with black scales and then black stonewash finish on the blade. And you have to keep in mind they're very budget friendly and they do have a lot of value for that. So all the caveats out of the way, this is a good tool. Okay, I probably feel like in the price point you could do a little better. But you have to keep in mind as a knife collector, you know, if that's what you are watching this video, I'm just assuming that you are. But these are made in the USA. That is a pretty big selling point to most people. If I was going to bring out knives about in this same category of the Kershaw budget line, I might bring out something like my very dirty, what is it, the Emerson Kershaw collaboration. I think they call these the 6Ks or something like that. If we could get it to focus. There's your model number. This is a recurved blade. A little bit different. Okay, a lot of bit different in use, in my opinion. But again, this is like 35 and these usually start around 50 bucks. So, but I do feel like this is a little bit better for me personally. Again, you have to keep in mind point of view when I'm doing these reviews. My collection, I do love all knives, so I can usually find a lot of good in every knife, but I haven't quite found a perfect knife yet. Even if we had to look at a Sabenza, I could still find faults or something that I would want to change. So keep in mind that I am being ultra critical with this second half of the review. I think for the money, you're going to be very happy. For one, they have a very thin blade stock compared to most modern day folders. Right, so if you're looking at your Para 2, check out the blade differences there. So it's nice. I really like hollow ground blades, which is one of the reasons I do love the Sabenza so much. Depending on what you're cutting and what your uses are throughout the day, I think a hollow grind will suit most people really well. And then over the lifetime of a knife, a hollow ground blade keeps a very thin behind the edge as you sharpen it up. So I think they're good for longevity too. But anyways, all my biases aside, this does cut great. It has a nice, beautiful blade shape. So we have a nice drop point shape there. Has a beautiful looking swedge on there. And then this hollow ground blade with a little bit of a belly here, straight portion here, and you have your belly here. Nice little swooping belly. So you might be asking yourself, and then based on how I have titled this video, which I don't know yet, I never know. Before I list the video about 5 minutes before, I say, It probably needs a title, so then I think about it. But anyways, so here's how it feels in the hand. You're probably wondering, again, to finish my thought from the last thought, where is the negative? It sounds like he absolutely is in love with the Skyline. I'm not. I'm really not. But we're going to get to that, okay? So here is how I grip this knife. I like the fact that it has no jimping. For a nice, smooth, and thin knife like this, keep in mind, look how they did the stainless liner only on one side of the knife, which is only really needed for a knife like this. Maybe. I'm going to show you something where maybe that was at a disadvantage, or maybe that was some other factors in there. Just stay tuned. I'm going to talk about that. So you can see the lockup on this one is good, right where I would like it. The full tang, the full locking tab of the liner is engaged with the tang. I like that a lot. If you can see down inside there, it looks like bronze phosphor washers. Has a great action. I like bronze phosphor washers. I like Teflon as well, and bearings are okay. But this would be my first choice for a folder. Nice bronze phosphor washers in there for a working knife. It has a good, nice hard detent. Not super hard, but for the price point, again, keep in mind that these usually start around $50. Trying to show you and let you hear this detent. Okay, so it's about right at the scales. There it is. It is hard to not fire this knife in any position, which is pretty impressive when you consider the thin blade stock and a hollow ground knife. And then you also have to consider that the whole knife is like a EDC style knife where you're not going to see a lot of hard use. You're just going to be cutting with it. The blade length around 3.1. All this is what I'm saying is sometimes flippers, I don't have any here right by me, but sometimes flippers can get away with a little bit of action problems if they have a big heavy blade, if they have like a big full flat ground blade or some sort of saber ground blade or something like that, because the weight, as soon as you rip it past the detent, the weight of the blade actually carries it around. So it flips. All this to say it flips very well for the now that one didn't flip all the way. Usually you do not need any wrist. It is more of a push button flipper. I have zero problems with how this flipper it works. I do have a problem with the design, and that's going to lead us into the second portion of this review. Some people find this knife pleasing to look at. I don't. I don't quite want to stab my eyes out with it, but I think, holy cow, like it could have been done so much better in my opinion. For one, let's start off with the biggest issue that I've seen. Look how much this nice gentleman folder, which I would feel like it is. It's thin, it's light, it's a nice flipper, cuts great. But why? Every knife to me does not have to have a lowrider clip, but you have 1/4 of your knife sticking out of your pocket. If you could choose the tip up configuration. So holy cow, look how much that thing pokes out of your pocket. It looks completely ridiculous. Now, if you go on eBay or maybe even Amazon, you will see that the aftermarket has solved that problem, and they do have a lowrider clip that is built for this knife. So it's possible. They do use this clip on a lot of different knives, maybe to keep it at this price point. They had to use this clip. As a clip, I think it works great. You know, it has enough room for material under here. We have enough of a ramp here to get over your pocket. But holy cow, look how much of that thing sticks out of your pocket. It's ridiculous. I didn't want to carry it any more than I had to do this review, just based on that fact. Now, if you carry it tipped down, it's not quite a problem. You can see where those mounting holes are, and only about that much sticks out of your pocket. But only serial killers carry their knives tipped down. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I'm saying most guys nowadays carry their knife right pocket, tip up configuration. Again, left-handed people, you are left out of this knife. Oh, dumb dad jokes. Okay. I have some more serious things to go over this knife. So, to me, holy cow. This knife, can I say it? It's just ugly. To me, it's ugly. Right up here, we have a beautiful flowing design. We have a nice, almost like spear point. I know it's a drop point, but look at this gradual swedge that comes down, meets up to this blade, packs a lot of edge length. I'm like, holy cow, we have a winner here, especially at the price point, right? And then I go like this. Oh, really? Really? Okay, again, as a tool, it works great. And some people are going to thumbs down this video, and I don't blame you, whatever. But, you know, we all have our own opinions. To me, this thing is ugly. Yes, it works great as a tool. I feel like it could be better just because my preferences. But look how this handle goes. It goes in for a nice finger choil here to lock our finger in, right? And then it comes out, and then it gets thin up at the rear. In fact, it goes thinner than the blade is here. So to me, visually, this thing is very unbalanced. And again, that's just my eye. But to me, this looks like how nice and flowing this is. And this blends and is a straight line down. This looks like a beautiful knife. Do you see it? Kind of like a woman who has to wear the burqa. It's like, oh, beautiful eyes. And then you go, holy cow, train wreck. It's like, man. And that's not the only train wreck. If we're going to, and I will get into it, exactly how I feel about this locking engagement and how, look how it goes from there to put some pressure on it. Whoa, did that blade just almost walk over to the show side? Sure did. And all I was doing was making a cutting motion into this wood. I wasn't really gripping on it. Okay, so the knife falls apart more ways than looks. But if you have to be completely honest, this is still a very secure lockup, if not more secure than it was before. So that's why I'm still sticking to the first part of the review. It does make a good tool. I would recommend this knife at this price point. Am I going to add one to my collection? No, I won't. Okay, for one, another area I find it super, almost more annoying to me because I feel like it could have been done better, is this flipper area here. This right here is so ugly in a knife design. I don't know what to do with myself. You know, again, don't quite want to stab my eyes out, but holy cow, we're getting very close. Why could they have not done some sort of a finger choil here? Now, if you could see, picture my finger is where the cutout would be, or let's say my thumb, where the choil would be. Man, we are losing very little cutting edge there, and we would add a lot to the functionality of the knife. This does have the thumb stud for the stop pin both ways, and we're going to get there too. Again, this knife, to me, does not only fall apart on looks, it falls apart on execution and design, and more so design. Okay, so we're getting there. To me, this is all wasted space. It looks like a big shark fin flipper. The way that the scale here is leaned forward, it then pairs up with this cheap knife plunge angle here. It's just a 90-degree plunge. No. And I know it's unfair to compare it up against like a Sabenza, but to me, a hollow ground knife should have a nice swooping plunge in there. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about your flat grinds? I'm not talking about flat grinds. Okay? You can roll in a flat grind, right? You can roll in a flat grind plunge. You can. But most Spydercos don't. Cheap Kershaws, not quite a 90 degree, but they do. Keep in mind this is made in the US, so I'm not quite comparing it up against this. Keep in mind that the Sabenza is like 10 times more expensive than the Kershaw Skyline. But, you know, here's a cheap like $10 Kershaw. I don't even know what this model's called. And holy cow, I could do a whole video on how ugly this thing is. A flipper. I have to make a video on what I feel about design, knife design. To me, this line that comes from here all the way down steals the whole show from the knife, and it's a turd. This thing is a turd. But anyways, so to me, all this is a train wreck. You have a design line going forward here for the handle scales. You've got your straight 90-degree plunge, okay? And then you have all this wasted space for a flipper. For what? We don't need all that. We just need the very tip. We just need the tip there. It's a push-button flipper. Even if it was a pullback light switch style flipper, which it's not, you can see it's not, we still wouldn't need all this material here. We don't need all this. To me, and I've done one in the past, and maybe I will edit it in this video. Keep in mind it is very, very early work, so the scale was atrocious. I tried to put a texture on it. It didn't work out. Then I had to polish it, and if I've done this video right, I will have edited in. So you can see like even 10 years ago or so where I thought it was a super ugly area of the knife right here. This should have a finger choil. In my opinion, again, that's not going to be everybody's taste. To me, yeah, that's ugly. It looks like a shark. You've got lines coming down here for the plunge. This is coming down here. This is a swooping angle around here. It's a train wreck of a design. And then you've got your nice, beautiful flowing line here. And then you have a nice, beautiful flowing line here. And then it's like, gets all messed up here. This pokes out and then swoops back, and then it gets skinny here. Why? Again, it is just ugly to me personally. But to me, it makes me hold this knife not like a knife. Look how you would hold something straight. Okay, something straight. Something. Let's even go up this dog turd right here. Something straight. Okay. Maybe we could even throw this guy in there. This Kershaw Emerson. You see how this is fairly straight. Now, we get into this. I have nothing against organic and wonky designs, right? If you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you know how much I love the SNG. But look how when this knife gets thin at the back, to me, it makes me hold this knife up. Instead of being straight, it makes me hold this knife up. If you're doing a lot of food prep with this knife, maybe that would be something you want. But usually knives, if I have it here, and I do, usually knives have a negative angle, blade angle. So if you hold the handle straight, usually the blade is kicked forward for like a negative blade angle, right? This is the opposite. This makes you hold the knife up like this instead of coming down. To me, that gives you power. That's one of the reasons why the military is so much of an incredible slicer. This blade is already kicked forward, and it almost acts like a hawksbill blade and pulls itself into the cut when you're holding your hand straight like this, right? Now look at the Skyline. it holds itself backwards. Because the handle is skinny in the back, it kicks back instead of biting into the cut. Does that make sense to you guys? Or am I just completely off my rocker 20 minutes into a knife review video on a $55 knife? But can you see it? This makes me hold the knife up. When I'm cutting something, it feels like it wants to slip off the blade instead of at least being straight like a Sebenza or something. And I know you cannot compare these knives. Let's go ahead and compare it with this. When I'm backwards, see how this knife is kicked forward and it feels like it wants to bite into the cut with my arm in a straight line here, right? Because it's very straight and stick-like design. This makes me hold it back like this. It just, you know what I mean? This, I much prefer, and maybe that's my own bias, I much prefer a fatter bottom here. Fatter bottom. Okay, yeah, there's a joke there. But you can see what I mean. I don't know, it's one of the reasons I really do love the SNG, because it has more meat at the back of the handle to grab onto. And to me, if anything, it doesn't kick this knife up. When I hold on to this knife in reverse, this knife is pushed back and biting into the cut. It is very, very natural in my hand. This kicks the knife up. Most knives you want to see, usually, most designers will design them with a little bit of a rake in the blade. Do you know what I mean? I feel like this would be a better knife if it was right here. All right, so that's just my philosophy, okay? You might walk away saying, wow, he's an idiot. And I it's just how I feel. You could be right. Could be very right. But I usually like negative blade angle. And this doesn't necessarily have a negative or positive angle. It's just the way that the grip gets skinnier on the rear and the way it lines up with this finger choil, and then you have a really nice blade here. And it just, to me, makes it sit funny in my hand. I hold it up. It sits up. When I want to cut into something, it feels like it's going to slide off rather than bite into the cut. Why do you think a karambit is kicked forward so much? Do you know what I mean? Why do you think a hawkbill pulls the material into the blade? You know, this does the exact opposite. It makes it want to slide off the blade. And again, if you love the Kershaw Skyline, I can't argue with you. It is a good knife for the price point. I do feel like you could do better, even if you stuck in the U.S. You know, that might be another video. But I would recommend the Skyline. The another major, not really concern, but the other thing that really caught me off guard, and even caught me off guard on every single one I've ever handled, is how nice they lock up. But as soon as you use them for anything that's tougher than some tape or a box or something like that, the liner will walk over on you. Can you see it moving? And that is due to this show side being a G10 scale and the stop pin being fairly thin, and the build of this knife is just the one liner here. It's not anchored 100% positive here, and then you come up to the stop pin, which is a good design. There's a little bit of flex here, but I wouldn't say there's play. They kind of take their design cues from maybe a Hinder or a Strider or any of the harder used knives. Kershaw even has several in their ZT line that have this through pin all the way through, and that gives you some stability side to side. Where the SNG, obviously way different category of knives, is just a lot more built. It does only have the full metal on this lock side, but this has just the liner, and you will see that thing flex over. So in theory, this should work, but in practice, it really doesn't work. And I don't know if that's because the tolerances are not quite correct here, or maybe that pivot slides around a little more in the G10 front. In fact, you can almost see the bronze phosphor washer through this jade. And again, as an EDC knife, is that a problem? Not really. I don't think it's anything you should be concerned about. It probably should not stop you from buying this knife. Another weird, awkward thing about this knife, and you know, again, this is just me. Maybe you've noticed it as well. Is there's the stop pin on the knife that is the stop pin for when it's open, is also the stop pin when it's closed. And you can see it just bumps up against the scale in the liner more so than the scale. Do you see that? The liner more so than the scale, which means this blade will push down and flex. Do you see me pushing this blade down and flexing it? Which also means, can you see it? Let me get a light. Look at that, where it's bumping into the backspacer. That's not right. You see where the tip is biting down into the backspacer? That's not a good knife design. That's gonna blunt your tip. It's not good. It's not good. At the price point, it's hard to complain about this knife, but there is so many other things to me riding way out of the pocket like that. Takes away so much from the good, and especially when me personally, I would just add a little bit more money and get something a little better. That would be for another video. Overall, I guess you could leave this video saying the Kershaw Skyline, meh. If you really like it, I don't think you're going to be disappointed for the money. If you paid more, if you paid $100 for this knife, you're going to be really upset. If you give this knife away as a gift to a friend or whatever, I think they're going to really enjoy it. If you give it to another knife connoisseur, I think this knife is going to fall apart hobby-wise. Not fall apart literally as in it falls apart and it's not a good tool. It's going to fall apart when you start to get a real delicate eye and you start to understand different designs, and you can do this portion of the blade better. That your liner should not go from perfect engagement to walking over. This is not my knife, so I really don't want to go any farther than that. But you can see right there, when you put pressure on it, because this is not quite a solid design, this blade flexes up a little bit, and when this blade flexes up a little bit, it allows that liner to lock a little bit more across the tang of the blade. So there you go. It holds awkwardly in my hand. Is it unbearable? Could I not use this knife? No, I absolutely could use this knife. I just know personally that there are better EDC knives for me, so the search continues. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop at the Kershaw Skyline. If you are a left-handed person, you're going to have to carry this knife like a right-handed person, I guess, or carry it in this pocket upside down or backwards or something. Anyways, you can see there's only the screw mounts here, and I appreciate that. I don't like extra holes drilled in my knives, but for a widely produced knife that's supposed to hit the whole market, maybe they should have put extra holes on the front for the tip up for all the options. Many left-handed people can also carry our right-handed knives. It's not like it's super hard, right? So maybe go ahead and give them some mounting options as well. And also, you know, maybe instead of recessing this scale to pretend like there's a thumb stud on this knife, you see me deploy it, but I really had to think about it. There's no leading ramp into the thumb stud. It works if you put it down on top of it, and I have been carrying this knife for a week now, and I've been practicing with it. You can do it, and I'm not going to say you can't do it, but it's very awkward. It is definitely, yeah, not, you know, like a standard thumb stud should be. but it does work. But okay, so what was I saying? So instead of having this hit there, on a liner that's a spring that already can move up and down, maybe make this scale hit the same portion here. Instead of having this recessed up, right? Maybe you could drop this front scale down, and then the blade stop, just like it does when it's open, will hit it when it's closed as well too. And some people would say, well, why are you squeezing it in your pocket? Well, sometimes, you know, if this is up against your back pocket and you bump your knife to put it down in your pocket, yeah, this is going to move up and down. And then, truth be told, just closing it actually hits that. Maybe they could shorten the blade or change the blade shape a little bit to not do that. I don't know. I don't think that's the answer. Maybe just, I don't know. Scrap the design, start over. It's, I don't know. It's a confusing review, guys. I like the knife, but I don't. I'd recommend it, but I would put one back in my collection again. So there you go. I do like the bronze phosphor washers. I like that they got this lightweight knife to flip. I like that it's a thin blade and that it does cut well. It just holds awkwardly in your hand and is a little bit ugly to me. And it has a little bit of a locking issue if you're doing anything more than cutting tape and maybe even cardboard. So if you start cutting anything heavier than that, which maybe you're not going to with this knife. I also don't like the billboarding on the clip, but I understand why they do it. But to me, that's ugly as everything. I don't need that billboard hanging out of my pocket. So there it is, guys. 31 minutes on a Kershaw Skyline. Whoo! I apologize, but sorry, not sorry. Just is what it is. I think if you guys were to ever ask me how I feel about a Skyline, if you made it to the end, you know exactly how I feel about it. And I'd rather give you more information than not enough information. So there's my ideas. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you enjoy your day. We will see you.